The episode starts with Ivan taking Manuela to the children's camp run by his uncle Eligio. He begs his uncle to help his sick girlfriend, but just then Eligio notices that Ivan has also caught the virus. Soon after, the young couple is given a mysterious substance that sends them to sleep. Once Ivan falls unconscious, Eligio takes him home, leaving poor Manuela alone and dying on Alma's orders. Manuela actually looks like she may die soon, without a vaccine. After learning about Ivan's condition, Louis and Alma have a very emotional conversation concerning their son. Alma is utterly distraught. She, of course, demands that everything be done to save her son, no matter what the cost might be at all. That night, Hugo and Julia contemplate their lives over a bottle of smuggled whiskey. Julia wants Hugo to date again and enjoy life, as her sister would definitely want the same for him. The scene switches back to the compound. Major Enrique is now there for a specific reason: to kill Manuela. For him, getting rid of the maid serves to tidy things up, and also to appease Alma. Alma tells him to do whatever in his capacity to save her image in front of the president. The next morning, Hugo and Julia arrive at work and learn the devastating news that Manuela and Ivan both are infected. They are now being transported here. Hugo and Julia blame themselves for helping the young couple get away, as things certainly turned around for the worst. In the meantime, Emilia visits the police station looking for Fernando, the policeman whose child is also missing for 3 years. However, Fernando is certain that his son died years ago, so he insists on her not to spread false news. Emilia continues to persuade him until he finally has his guards throw her out. Despite this, Fernando takes the poster Emilia was carrying and wonders whether what she said is true. At the same time, Major Enrique notices Emilia passing by, so he quickly asks for Fernando, who reveals that she is some crazy woman who is talking about missing children. Enrique warns him to be on high alert and orders him to put the 20 most strong and loyal guards in the building as soon as possible. Fernando takes his senior's orders, but he seems to be quite confused. Back at the minister's house, Eligio and the medical team arrive with Ivan, who is rushed inside and kept in a safe quarantine zone. Julia and Hugo sadly learn that they didn't bring over pregnant Manuela. The couple then reports this to Louis, who reprimands Eligio and asks for the camp's location. Louis then tells Hugo and Julia to go over to the site and take care of Manuela. As for the poor girl, she is barely hanging to her last breath. A young boy named Pedro sneaks out of the practice session and helps her drink some water. Shockingly, he turns out to be Fernando's long-lost son. Back at the mansion, Alma learns that the only chance of her son's survival is the blood of a fountain girl with an amazing immune response. That is Hugo's little girl, Marta. Alma, for her part, tells Eligio to do whatever it takes to save her son's life. Consequently, she has her bodyguard kidnap Marta while the little girl is alone at home. Digona, the next-door neighbor and government informant, tricks the child into opening the door, and moments after, she is chased by Alma's bodyguard. Poor Marta screams in horror as she realizes what's next for her. She runs into her bedroom and hides under the covers, but is eventually made unconscious and taken to a secret lab. Eligio and his nurse drain the blood out of Marta, hoping to use it to save Ivan's life. Alma also notes that her husband is finding out about the children and transfers her concern to Enrique, who makes the decision to evacuate the camp with the help of Fernando. The children are made to line up as they are transferred to another facility. At the same time, Hugo and Julia arrive at the campsite and learn about the evacuation. Sadly, they cannot help the kids this time, as their top concern right now is to save dying and pregnant Manuela. Back at the mansion, Ivan is given the antiviral activity drained from Marta's blood. She explains to her husband that the substance was retrieved from what she calls donors. A while after, Ivan regains consciousness and slowly recovers back to health. This is a major breakthrough for Alma, because not only her son survived the virus, but he is also the first test subject she tested the antiviral on. At the campsite, Enrique finds Manuela barely holding on to life. He then points a gun at her, ready to open fire. However, Pedro, the kid who was helping her the other day, bravely distracts him so he doesn't succeed in murdering Manuela. Enrique then grabs the child and drags him to the vehicle where the other kids are being held. Suddenly, Fernando, who is also present there, sees the boy and is forced to verify what Emilia said was true, that his son is, in fact, alive. Much to his surprise, he has now discovered the utter truth about the military and the government. In the meantime, Hugo and Julia find where Manuela is and rescue her before Enrique returns to kill her. Later, when Eligio returns to the camp to get some medical supplies, he is held at gunpoint by Hugo and Julia, who are still hiding at the camp along with Manuela. Hugo then threatens Eligio to do everything in his capacity to save Manuela. Elsewhere, Emilia learns that her granddaughter has been kidnapped, thanks to the sly Bigona. She goes ballistic and slaps Bagina, yelling at her where they took Marta. But the informant has no clue what she did wrong as she worships the government. The situation gets worse as the virus cases shoot up. Meanwhile, Manuela's health is deteriorating, and it doesn't look good. Eligio is convinced he cannot help her as he doesn't have Marta's blood anymore. As there are rampant virus cases, the president summons Health Minister Lewis and the director of epidemiology Alma to make protocols on health safety. Before they leave their mansion though, Alma mentions to her husband that the antiviral isn't drained from adults, that the donors are actually children who have been abandoned by their family. She claims to have looked after the children and treated them with love and care, but in reality, she just sees them as guinea pigs. Hearing her words, Lewis comes to the realization that what Emilia and the resistance were saying was true. He even recalls Clara, Salvator's girlfriend's, words about how they would all take their children away one day. But for now, he pretends to be on Alma's side. In the meantime, the children are brought to another underground facility. Fernando, having learned about his son, visits them, but the nurse warns him that she will report him to Major as nobody is allowed down here except the medical personnel. At the same time, Marta, who was kidnapped earlier, is thrown back to the same hell of a dungeon, but she does get to meet her friends. In the meantime, Lewis, Alma, and Enrique are summoned by the president. Their grand plan is announced as Lewis listens to the president, telling him that they will be running tests on children 15 and below. The minister is concerned about the health of the test subjects, but Alma ensures him that they will be in good hands. After much thinking, Lewis tells the president that there must be another way to get hold of this virus. Despite his protest, the president puts him in a moral dilemma to risk the children's life or let the virus wipe them out. Lewis finally agrees to go ahead with the plan, but he does have something else in mind. The meeting ends with the president declaring that Lewis should make a speech to encourage the people, informing them that the taking of their children is necessary and that they will be safe. It's in everyone's best interests and crucial for survival. Lewis agrees, and it seems like he is finally coming along with Alma's plan. In the meantime, Julia, who also seems to have antiviral activity, decides to transfuse her blood with Manuela's. Eligio is forced to carry out the task, but he believes the antiviral activity can only be found in developing humans, that is, children. His theory is that adults already have a built-in immune system, but much to his surprise, Julia's blood works on Manuela as she recovers back to health. Despite only just recovering, Ivan is furious that his mother left Manuela to die at the camp. Daniela curses at her mother, calling her a monster as she supposedly killed her grandchild, the one Manuela is pregnant with. Meanwhile, Manuela makes a shocking recovery, thanks to Julia. Julia and Hugo then take Eligio hostage in order to find Marta. They drag him to Emilia's place and tie him up. Hugo and Emilia then head out to try and rescue Marta. Arriving at Lewis' mansion, Emilia asks for his help, but sadly, he takes Alma's side and brushes her off, saying that he has a speech to announce soon. Hugo threatens to kill Eligio, but it only backfires as Alma says that he will never see Marta again. Emilia calls her old friend Lewis a cruel, disloyal, and wretched man. She is glad her husband isn't here for what Lewis has become today. She then storms off, though helpless and heartbroken. Back at home, Alex hears a knock at the door. It is Daniela, and she urgently needs his help with something. Consequently, Alex leaves Julia and Eligio alone. Moments after, Major Enrique and his forces arrive at the scene to arrest Julia, and by this time, they already know that she is posing to be her dead sister, Sarah. Thankfully, Manuela manages to hide away and save herself. Lewis prepares for his big speech as Alma uplifts him and thanks him for staying by her side. The media are ready and Daniela locks the main door after seeing her mother out. Just when he needs to, Lewis does what's right, fooling everyone around him. He keeps his own life on the line and announces the government's plan to take the citizens' children and treat them as guinea pigs. He warns the citizens to hide away their children before security forces barge into their houses. Reading out the famous words of a Spanish poet, Federico Garcia Lorca, Lewis reminds the people about freedom and the power of revolution. Hugo and Emilia, watching him on the streets, realize Lewis was playing along with Alma and is actually supporting their cause. The president, watching Lewis live, is certainly furious while Alma bangs on the door, begging her husband to stop the speech. She is enraged about her husband going behind her back to make that announcement, but then she was all for abducting children and using them as guinea pigs. Soon after the speech, Daniela and Lewis sneak away from the back door and get into the waiting vehicle, driven by Alex. It turns out that Daniela had approached Alex earlier for this very reason, to help them get away from the mansion, because now the president will surely be after them. Arriving at Sector 2, a crowd of civilians, ready to fight for their freedom, welcome Alex, Louis, and Daniela. While there is an uprising on this side of the town, Julia is taken into custody by the police. Eligio then studies her blood sample and discovers that there's something very unique about her plasma. Although it isn't clearly specified what's going on, it is hinted that it's got something to do with those shots that Julia and Sarah got from their father when they were children. And Marta also has the same shot marks behind her neck. Julia tells Eligio that it's just a birthmark, but he reminds her that she and her niece cannot certainly have the same marks on the same exact spots. Just when Eligio is about to investigate the mark by cutting it open, Marta comes in and hugs her aunt. Subscribe to see more videos like this, turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.